Hello and welcome everyone to Science Era. In this video, we'll be discussing theme and study of life, which is chapter number 1 of Campbell Biology. Right. So for chapter number 1, I will be discussing with you summary, important concepts, and some examinable questions. Right. So here you can see on the screen. This is the reference for the book I'm using. It's 11th edition Bio by Campbell. Right, I have given the ISBN number also. So, concept, there will be three sub-concepts, right? So, concept 1.1. In this, we'll be discussing how biologists explore life from the microscopic to the global scale. So, what do you think is a study of life? L- a study of life extends from the microscopic scale of molecules and cells to the global scale of entire living planet. Next, here you can see on the screen, this is the hierarchy of biology organization. So, on the highest level, you can see there's a biosphere. Right, so on the highest level, you can see biosphere. Even from space, we can see that signs of Earth's life. In the green mosaic of the forest, for example, we can also see the entire biosphere, which consists of all life on Earth and all the places where life exists. Most region of land, most bodies of water, atmosphere at an altitude of several kilometers, and even sediments far below the ocean floor, we can see in the biosphere. Then, as we come down to ecosystem after that. An ecosystem consists of all living things in a particular area, along with all the non-living things components of the environment with which life interact, such as soil, water, atmospheric gases, and light. After ecosystem, we come down to communities. The array of organisms inhabiting a particular ecosystem is called a biological community. Community in our meadow ecosystem includes many kinds of plant, various animals, mushrooms and other fungi, an enormous number of diverse microorganisms such as bacteria that are too small to see so without a microscope. So these are microscopic organisms. After communities, number 4, we have populations. A population consists of all the individuals of species living within the bonds of a specified area. For example, our meadow include a population of lupine, s- some of which are shown here, and the population of mule deer. A community is therefore the set of population that inhabit a particular area. Then, after population, we goes to organisms. Individual living things are called organisms. Each plant in the meadow is an organism. So is each plant in the meadow is an organism. So is each animal, fungus, and bacterium or tree in this case. After organism, we goes down to the organ or organ system. The structural hierarchy of life continues to unfold as we explore the architecture of a complex organism. A leaf and is an example of an organ, a body part that is made up of multiple tissues and has a specific function in the body. Leaf, stem, and roots are major organ of plant. Within an organ, each tissue has a distinct arrangement and contributes the particular properties to organ function. After organ, we come down to tissue. Each tissue is a group of cells that works together performing a specialized function. Then organelle. After tissue, we goes to cell. A cell is the life's fundamental unit of structure and function. Some organism consist of a single cell which performs all the function of life. Other organisms can contain multicellular multicellular features of division. Organelles. Chloroplasts are example of organelles. The various functional components present in cell. The image below, taken by a powerful microscope, shows a single chloroplast cell. After organelle, we goes to the molecule. A molecule is a chemical structure consisting of two or more units called atom, represented as ball in this computer graphic of chlorophyll molecule. Chlorophyll is pigment that makes a leaf green and it absorbs sunlight during photosynthesis. Within each chloroplast, millions of chlorophyll molecules are organized into system that converts light energy to chemical energy of food. So this was all about the hierarchy of biological organization. Next we move on to seven properties of life. These are really important to learn for bio exam. Okay, so seven properties of life include order, regulation, in which we'll discuss homeostasis, energy processing, evolutionary adaptation, response to environment, reproduction, which include inheritance of genetic material like DNA, growth and development regulated by DNA. So here we have a basic theme for energy flow in ecosystem. There is a one-way energy flow in ecosystem during photosynthesis. Plant converts energy from sunlight to chemical energy, which is used by plants and other organisms to do work and is eventually lost from the ecosystem as heat. So energy will start from the solar energy from sun. It will go to producer, then primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, decomposer, and then cycle will start again. Next, we have consequences of climate change. So, you can see in the given diagram here different consequences of climate change. These are important to learn for bio because they have asked same question in last year exams. So, consequences of climate change include environmental degradation, which include forced migration, civil conflict, mental health impact, loss of jobs and incomes, extreme heat, heat-related illness and death, cardiovascular failure, degraded living conditions, social inequalities, changes in vector ecology, air population of increasing allergens. This will increase the diseases like asthma, cardiovascular disease, respiratory allergies, severe weather, injuries, fatalities, loss of homes, mental injury, health impacts, water and food supply impacts, water quality impacts. So, malnutrition will occur, diarrheal disease will occur, cholera, and other harmful algae bloom will also occur. Next, what do you think is a cell? Cell is a basic unit of life. It is the lowest level of organization that can perform all activities required for life. Cell contain chromosomes made partly of DNA, the substance of gene, which programs the cell production of proteins and transmit information from parents to offspring. The molecular structure of DNA accounts for its information rich nature. All cells share certain characteristics. They all enclosed by a membrane. They all use DNA as genetic information. There are two forms of cell, eukaryotic or prokaryotic cells. So here we'll discuss difference between prokaryotic or eukaryotic cell. Prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell can be distinguished by their structural organization. A eukaryotic cell is subdivided by internal membrane into many different functional compartments, membrane enclosed organelles. The difference between prokaryote and eukaryote cell is that prokaryotic cell lacks organelles, that is membrane bound. DNA is contained in a nucleus. Prokaryotic cell lacks the cytoplasmic organelle typical of eukaryotic cells of DNA, and the DNA is not separated by a plasmic membrane from the rest of the cell, thus forming a nucleus. So in the next slide, I will be showing you a summary of difference and the similarities between prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. So in this diagram, you can see prokaryotic cell include nucleoid, circular DNA that floats freely around cell, simpler DNA, no membrane-bound organelles, typically much smaller, divided by binary fission, typically unicellular, anaerobic and aerobic. While on the other hand, eukaryotic contain nucleus, they are linear DNA that is held in nucleus. Complex DNA also present. Membrane-bound organelles are there in eukaryotic cell, typically much larger, divided by mitosis or meiosis, typically multicellular and aerobic. Both of the qualities shared by prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells include chromosomes, DNA as a genetic material, ribosomes, cytoplasm, plasma membrane. Sometimes they both have cell walls and vacuoles. Then we move on to next concept, which is biological system are much more than the sum of their parts. So what do you think is a system? A system is a combination of components that form a more complex organization. Emergent properties of system. Due to increasing complexity, new properties emerge with each step upward in hierarchy of biological order. So here you can see how life emerged from parts in eukaryote cell. Different part will combine, the individual parts are arranged into the structure, and then emergent behavior, a life will result. Next we have power and limitations of reductionism. Reductionism involves reducing complex systems to simpler components that are more manageable to study. The study of DNA structure, an example of reductionism, has led to further study of heredity, such as Human Genome Project. Next, you can see here is a taxonomic level, right? As we go down, the reductionism, according to reductionism, it will be easier for us to study simpler components instead of whole domain or kingdom, right? So, how you go down the taxonomical level? First, we have domain. Then, as we move down, we have kingdom, then phylum, class, order, family, genus, and then species. How does word system fits into bio? System biology seeks to create models of dynamic behavior of whole biological system. With such models, scientists will be able to predict how a change in one part of a system will affect the rest of the system. Next, we have feedback mechanism. A feedback mechanism tends to accelerate or inhibits the hormonal secretion. There can be two types of feedback mechanism, which is positive feedback mechanism or negative feedback mechanism. First, we look at negative feedback mechanism. In a negative feedback, an accumulation of an end product slows the process that produces that product. So, in the negative feedback mechanism, original effect of stimulus is reduced by output. It normalizes things when they start becoming too extreme. For example, insulin signaling. So, high blood glucose level stimulates the cell in pancreas to secrete insulin into blood. Then insulin circulates in blood throughout the body. Then insulin will bind to body cell, causing them to take up glucose and liver cell to store glucose. This lower glucose level in blood, lower blood glucose levels stimulate the secretion of insulin. So, in a negative feedback, an accumulation of end product slows the process that produces the product. Next, we have positive feedback mechanism. In this, the end product speeds up the production. Original effect of stimulus is enhanced by the output. Condition become extreme in this mechanism. For example, clotting of blood in response to injury or milk secreted by mother's mammary gland while suckling. Nerve sends signal to nipple to stimulate the pituitary gland to secrete prolactin. In turn, prolactin triggers the mammary gland to secrete milk. As baby suckles more milk, more prolactin is secreted and milk is produced. So you can say this is an example of positive feedback mechanism because end product speeds up the production. Next we move on to concept 1.3, which is biologists explore life across its great diversity of species. Diversity is the hallmark of life. Diversity is defined as a degree of variation of living things present in a particular ecosystem. Three domains of life are domain bacteria, domain archaea, and domain eukarya. Domain bacteria and archaea consist of prokaryotes and domain eukarya consists of the eukaryotes, includes the various protist kingdom and the kingdom plantae, fungi and animalia. So here, if you look at domain bacteria, bacteria are the most diverse and widespread prokaryotes and are now divided among multiple kingdoms. Each of the rod-shaped structure in this photo is bacterial cell. Next we move on to domain archaea. Many of the prokaryotes known as archaea lives on Earth's extreme environments such as salty lakes, boiling hot springs. Domain archaea includes multiple kingdoms. The photo shows a colony composed of many cells. Moving on to domain eukarya. First we have protists. Protists are unicellular eukaryotes and their relative simple multicellular relatives. Pictured here is an assortment of protists inhabiting pond water. Scientists are currently debating how to split the protist into several kingdoms that better represent evolution and diversity. Kingdom Plantae consists of multicellular eukaryotes that carry out photosynthesis, the conversion of light energy of food. Then we have Kingdom Fungi and Kingdom Animalia in the last. Kingdom Fungi is defined in parts by the nutritional mode of its membrane, such as mushroom, which absorb nutrients after decomposing organic material. Kingdom Animalia consists of multicellular eukaryotes that ingest other organisms. Last concept we have about evolution. Evolution accounts for life's unity and diversity. The history of life is a saga of changing Earth's billion of year old. Evolution is defined as the process of growth and development or the theory that organisms have grown and developed from past organisms. Evolutionary view of life came into sharp focus in 1859 when Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species by Natural Selection. The origin of species articulates two main points. First one is descent with modification, and the second one is natural selection. Natural selection. Darwin proposed natural selection as mechanism for evolutionary adaptation of population to their environment. Natural selection is evolutionary process that occurs when a population heritable variation are exposed to environmental factor that favors the reproductive success of some individual over others. The product of natural selection are often executive adaptations of organisms to the species circumstances of their way of life and their environment. So, in four steps, if you have to describe natural selection, first you see each species. First, you have to know that each species shows variation. Second, there is a competition within each species for food, living space, water, mates, etc. Then, the better adapted members of these species are more likely to survive. So, we say survival for the fittest. These survivors will pass on their better genes to their offsprings, who will also show this beneficial variation. So, this is the process of natural selection by Charles Darwin. So, this was all for chapter number 1 of BLG 1501 module. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and if you have any questions, uh, do leave them in comments. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.